Hello, everybody. Good Tuesday morning. Time for some more Seahawks talk. And we got to talk about something that played out on Sunday against the Houston Texans. Something that could affect the future of the Seattle Seahawks franchise. And I don't know if that way is going to be positive or negative yet, but it is interesting. And interesting's good. I will say that. I would rather have interesting things happen than just have the same old predictable stuff happen. So, I guess that's a start. We are talking about specifically Jake Curhan and his role with this team going forward because now that that game happened, now that we saw what he can do in his first start at his natural position, it is conceivable. It is conceivable that Jake Curhan is now part of some long-term plans for this team. Before that game, I would have said he's at best going to be a depth player at right tackle. Now, I think we need to at least have this conversation. And I know it's just one game, but it was the whole game. And what we saw was pretty stark and pretty significant. And I want to get out in front of this now because we might see more of Jake Curhan for the next 4 games. And the next 4 games, if he gets out there and continues to do these things, we might have, in our minds anyway, a solution at the right tackle position. And I want to be clear about something before we get into the video. I had some people on my last couple of videos say that they hope Jake Curhan can become a great guard and that he can be a long-term answer at guard for us. I really don't see him being anything other than a right tackle in this league. He can be an effective right tackle. Playing him at any other position to me is just Ethan Posick Redux or Damian Lewis Redux or maybe Justin Britt too, because we played him at every position under the sun before we moved him to center, and he was actually okay. But I want to be clear about that. Jake Curhan is a right tackle, or I don't want him doing anything. So, he did some really good things against the Texans on Sunday, and he was so good, and good in a certain area, that if Pete Carroll especially sticks around in 2022, which is a possibility no matter how much we may not like that, he may have caught Carroll's eye to the point where Jake Curhan may end up having a bigger role on this team than just a depth guy. Okay, so first of all, Jake Curhan received a 76.1 grade from PFF for that game against the Texans. Pass block grade, pretty bad, 47.3. Run block grade, 88.4. That's remarkable. That is extremely impressive. Now, we didn't need PFF to tell us this. I'm just using this to confirm our priors, right? If you watch that game, you probably noticed that when we ran the ball behind the right side of the offensive line, we were killing it. A lot of people in the Discord noticed it. A lot of people on Twitter noticed it. I think at one point we were averaging 8 yards a carry on that side. I don't know if that held up for the end of the game, but it might have. We were dominant run blocking over there. And for an offensive line that has not run blocked well lately at all on any front, that was very, very encouraging. So, this is something that I almost kind of feel like we're in a little bit of trouble now. And I know people are going to listen to me say this and they're going to say, oh, there goes Brendan Nelson again, finding the negative in everything. And I kind of am. I kind of am. I can't even deny it. But we are playing a dangerous game with Jake Curhan right now. Because as long as Pete Carroll is here, you know he's going to look at something like this and go, oh yeah, that's my kind of player. That is my kind of offensive lineman. I like a dude who run blocks. He'll get my quarterback killed. Yeah, he's going to get my quarterback murdered. But it's cool because he can run block. That's how Pete looks at things. This is another thing that we were talking about in the Hawks Nest stream last week when we were talking about guys like Forsyth and Curhan. Pete Carroll likes his run blockers. Why do you think Mark Glowinski couldn't do anything here, goes to the Colts, and becomes a quality offensive line starter? Because he was a good pass blocker, and we deprioritize that around here. We want run blockers. Even if the run blocker is going to get the quarterback killed, we think that's okay. That's how Pete does things. So, going into this offseason, I was already thinking about life after Brandon Shell, because Shell's not that good, and he's a free agent. He gets hurt a lot. I was thinking about, can we get maybe one of the top rookie right tackle prospects, like a Falele or a Trevor Penning? I was thinking about, can we get a free agent and somebody who can play right tackle? I was thinking about this. But if Pete is here next year making the decisions, which is certainly possible, he might look at this and go, I got my guy. I got my guy, and his name is Jake Curhan, because that dude can run block. And I'm not here to tell you that he can't run block. He most certainly can. But what about the other part of the game? I saw another stat elsewhere that said that Curhan allowed 3 pressures in that Houston Texans game. No sacks, but he did allow 3 pressures, which led the team. No other offensive lineman had allowed more than 2 pressures, I think. So it's his first game, right? I understand that people are going to say, it's his first game. And that's true. You expect players in their first ever start to struggle in pass blocking. That's the part of the game that comes with time. But just because it can come with time doesn't mean that it will. This is not Madden. They don't get a bunch of skill points they can pump into their pass block grade as they build experience. Jake Curhan could just end up being one of those right tackles who is an elite run blocker, but very shaky in pass protection. But again, Carroll's cool with that. Carroll is totally cool with offensive linemen who are great run blockers and shaky pass protectors. Now, could he get past that now that we're approaching this breaking point with Russell Wilson? Maybe Carroll can be moved off of that philosophy because he knows that the relationship with his quarterback is starting to get frayed if he can't start protecting him. Maybe. But watching that game on Sunday, watching Jake Curhan play well, at least in one area. In one area, he playing really well. I thought to myself, we are playing a dangerous game here. Because if you look at the way Jake Curhan's body is, if you look at the way he's built, look at the way he moves, I don't know if I see him ever being a smooth pass blocker. I can see him being a decent player. I can see him being an elite run blocker, but I don't think I ever see him being able to really lock down the right side of the offensive line the way I would like to have in an actual, I guess I'll call it a Wilson-friendly offense, but basically something that allows him to not get killed. And don't get me wrong, part of me is like, if we have found an undrafted rookie who can run block like this, we should utilize it somehow. It would be really a shame to waste that, to find something like that and then not get anything out of it because he sits on the bench all the time. But if we are going to go forward keeping the status quo, which means keeping Wilson, keeping Carroll, keeping Schneider, keeping all these things in place, then I need a right tackle who can protect. I can't have a right tackle giving up 2 or 3 pressures every game and giving up a bunch of sacks every season, but it's okay because he run blocks. So Brandon Shell, I don't know what his health prognosis is right now. I don't know if he's going to be back in time for the next game. But I kind of feel like we're going to see more Jake Curhan going forward. Honestly, it's not like Brandon Shell's playing great. You can argue that Jake Curhan in that start played better than Shell has this year. It depends on how much you prioritize certain things. Obviously, as a right tackle, your run blocking is more important than if you were a left tackle, but it still matters that you're able to pass block effectively. So I would not be surprised if we see more Jake Curhan, and I have no problem with that, of course. And we might see him continue to play well, continue to allow this offensive line to effectively run block when that has been a struggle for them lately. However, there's the other shoe here. What if Jake Curhan continues to dominate run blocking so hard that Carroll is like, oh, I got my guy. I got the next right tackle of the Seattle Seahawks. And maybe there's a universe where Jake Curhan develops into being a great right tackle as a pass blocker as well. And this is a dream. This is like, inject this into my veins type stuff. We found a long-term answer at right tackle with an UDFA selection, not even a draft pick. I love it. We need things like this to happen right now. This is what we need in some ways. And at the bare minimum, I'm excited that one of our young, cheap guys is at least showing that he belongs in the NFL. Because that was some really dominant run blocking in that game. You don't even need PFF to see it. You watch that game, you're like, wow, we're running the ball like crazy down the right side. But we are playing a dangerous game here because Carroll, he might see his next long-term right tackle here. And never mind the fact that if he comes to that conclusion, he will be coming to that conclusion off of a handful of games. Like, we've seen players come in at the end of the season for the Seahawks before, kick butt, and we all think, okay, that's the guy. That's the guy for the next 5 years. And then we don't really see from him again. I remember, remember Jordan Hill, pass rushing defensive tackle in 2014, had like 8 sacks in 8 games out of nowhere, and he was just kicking butt. And then he got injured, and we basically never saw him again. Stuff like that happens. I'm not talking about that. There's absolutely reason to be optimistic about Jake Curhan having a role here. But are we going to overstep that because he just so happens to be potentially extremely good at the stuff that Carroll cares about, even though he's not great at the stuff, or maybe not even good at the stuff that Wilson cares about? Let me know what you guys think down below. It's cool to see a UDFA come in and play an effective game for the Seahawks. It's cool to see one of these cheap young guys show that they belong here. But we're playing with fire here, guys. Because the last thing I want to see is this team run it back next year, start Jake Curhan at right tackle, and he's getting Wilson blown up a bunch every game. Very on the table. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks.